Hello and welcome to Sincerely Elvis Presley. I'm Sean. Thanks for taking the time to tune in. I appreciate it. As we head into August, a great many fans will be heading towards Memphis and gravitating inevitably towards Elvis's home, Graceland. Graceland was, the one constant in Elvis's life, really, from 1957 through to the end. It was his sanctuary. It was the place that he said he would never give up. And it's a very, very special place to all of us indeed. I've only visited it once, and it's crazy to think that it was 23 years ago since my wife and I stood outside those famous gates. So, being August, I thought it was a good time to take a little look at some of the publications that feature Graceland and focus on the rooms within it and Elvis's life in it. So let's start with what I think is the first official guide that was published. And I'm going on the fact that there's not so much in this one as there is in what I believe is the later one. And also this one's a hardback and they eventually became softback. So I think it's difficult really, because this being a guidebook, it doesn't really have any publishing date that I can see. But there is a copyright here from 1982, Janelle McComb, of the Memories of Graceland Mansion poem that's published inside the dust jacket. But I don't necessarily think that's an indicator of when this was published. Obviously, Graceland opened to the public in 1982. So, this might be the first guidebook from as early as that. If anyone does know, please do let me know in the comments. But yeah, I think this is the first guidebook. So let's get the dust jacket off and we'll have a little look-see. So Graceland. Now that's an important thing actually, Graceland. The general public forever refer to it as Gracelands, which is kind of understandable because, why would they know exactly what it's called? But I heard quite a few Elvis fans calling it Gracelands. And it's not Gracelands. It's never been Gracelands. It's never had an S on the end. So the mansion itself, built in 1939, Elvis purchased it on March the 19th, 1957 for the grand sum of $102,000 and $500. He didn't actually move in, or he spent his first night there in June the 26th, 1957. So it did spend quite some time being done up before he actually spent a night there. So yeah, I think this dates this as well, because the introduction is from Priscilla and Lisa Marie. And it's a very young looking photograph of Priscilla for sure. The official guidebook. So what do we get? We get photographs of the candlelit vigil, credits and acknowledgements, and in fact, in appreciation Delta Biggs 1993. So Aunt Delta was the last of the surviving Elvis relatives that actually lived full-time in the mansion. She passed in 1993, so that dates this particular publication to at least after 93. We've also got the Elvis postage stamp from January the 8th, 93. So we know we're definitely after 1983. There's the absolute classic photograph of Elvis, his mansion, taken at a very sad time. He's on leave from the army in 1958, but of course by then he's lost his mother. So these shots of him strolling around the mansion grounds looking very thoughtful are quite poignant. So what do we start with in this guide? Elvis' early years of musical beginnings, so a bit of background, nothing really to do with the mansion. I'll get a couple of shots of it in there, but obviously this is a potted history. But I guess it takes in bits and pieces from around the mansion. You see that really great shot there of the staircase with various Elvis guitars lined up along it. Elvis Army years, Elvis's life at Graceland, 57 to 77, and you get some great photographs. So it's quite a nice guidebook, really, but it's also telling a story. So there we've got the dining room, and of course this is pretty much how I thought Graceland was going red this year, but that doesn't seem to have happened. So the blue that they decorated it in when they opened it to the public was an original colour that it was in earlier on. But of course, when Elvis passed, there was a lot of red because Linda Thompson redecorated in 74. And I don't think in this particular book we get any guidebook, we get any historic photographs of it in red, so we just kind of see it as it was. Of course, it's not all red because, as we can see from the TV room and the pool room, there are quite a lot of other colours on display. But it's a strange place, Graceland, because I, like many others, loved it, and it felt extremely, extremely like a home. And you can definitely feel Elvis's presence there. And that's not just imagination. There's something there. For me, the big chills came when I was standing at the edge of the jungle room and thinking of him recording that material there in 76, and that really did make the hairs on my neck stand on end. But yeah, I think most of us are quite surprised that, you kind of expect a mansion to be a huge, gigantic place. Now, it's not a small place, is it? Let's face it. But when you're actually in there, it doesn't take too long to get around the rooms. So it's probably not on the huge scale that probably celebrities have these days. But of course, in its time, and especially for a young man that had grown up, in a tiny little shotgun shack in extreme poverty, it was indeed a huge mansion. There's the original Hall of Gold. Then we get a bit on Elvis's generosity, and yeah, kind of moving away a little bit from Graceland itself. A bit on the 68 special. JC. So some of the things that were exhibited, and as you can see, in those days when you went there, the jumpsuits and things were just accessible, within the body of the house. And when we went in 2002, they were in what would have been the old racquetball building, but it was all still within the mansion, so you saw it all there. Rather than now, if you go, it's all kind of over the road in the complex. So it's, I can understand why they've had to expand it. It's a huge tourist attraction. But, a lot of the stuff you were seeing in Elvis's home, which gave it a greater sort of sense of gravitas almost. There was Elvis's stuff in Elvis's home. And now that isn't really the case with the things on display, which is a shame. So, here we go. So I'm going to say this is probably, this guidebook, I think, is probably mid-90s, I would have said. Can't even remember where I got this one. I think, if I remember rightly, this was from the Boulevard, there's the souvenir shops that were opposite Graceland. I think I picked up an official guidebook when we were in the actual Graceland shop, and then this was, it might have been in a bargain bin by that stage, I don't know, but yeah. A Heartbreak Hotel, of course, which is now gone, which is a real shame because yeah. Automobile Museum, which is absolutely fantastic. Planes. I think that's kind of about it for this particular guide. So that's that one. Let's have a look at the more up-to-date one. Now, I don't know what you get now. I presume they've updated this even since. They will have had to. But this was the one that came from the Graceland shop opposite in 2002. And I suppose the fact that this is more modern is seeing the little EP hologram. But you do get a lot more. Oh, actually, while we're here, we've also got is the guide that was kind of on the counters of all the hotels and things for tourists. So there you go. New at the mansion, expanded exhibits and new digital audio tour. Does anyone who's been there bother with that? I certainly didn't. I just would have found it distracting, I think. So yeah, there's a flyer from, that would be 2002. So what else have I got here? I've got a Sun Studio leaflet as well. So here we go. So it is softback, but as I say, you are getting, there's a bit more design gone into it, it feels. Look. Biography. I think we're still on biography. So yeah, they've certainly expanded quite a lot just in probably less than 10 years, I would have thought, between the two. Suggest there was a bit about his career, TV specials, suggested reading, which is quite nice, and that probably dates it as well. The two Guralnick books, Ernst Jorgensen and Jorgensen and Guralnick's book together. What's that? It's a Presleyiana. Is that no Elvis Presley record guide? That's Jerry Osborne. The Infinite Elvis, annotated bibliography. Wouldn't bother with that. It's completely out of date now. Elvis and his fans. So then, got some nice photographs, and then your tour of Elvis Presley's Graceland. So yeah, I don't know why I was in any doubt. Actually, this is definitely a later publication. That shot again. From the gate. Elvis at the gate with fans. Then we get the upstairs, and we just see a shot of the chandelier there in the foyer. So, you know, quite rightly, what you're getting in the guide is what you see as a tourist. The living room, peacocks. Really nicely put together, this one. Music room, Gladys and Verdon's bedroom suite. Dining room. Kitchen. Basement area. TV room. This is kind of how a guidebook should be. I think this is really nicely done. Certainly a couple of the Elvis exhibitions I've been to, the so-called guidebooks have been a bit disappointing, really, because they've had hardly any of the things inside it you saw at the exhibit. More sort of interested in giving you a life story and whatever, which is all well and good, but you know, it's nice to have a record of what you've seen. And yeah, absolutely brilliant, this one. Really like it. But yeah, if you know, if you've been to Graceland in recent times, what's the guidebook like now? I'd be interested to know. As I say, I can't imagine they'd still be selling the same one some 23 years later. But you never know, they might have had huge stocks. But no, surely they will have at least updated it to commemorate Lisa Marie's passing. Yeah, this is really nice. Oh, really nice. Nice thick book as well. Nice layout, plenty of detail. You are getting to see, you could see even then, you know, the exhibits are in the house, albeit in a dedicated space, but yeah. Glorious. I think, what's that say? Exhibits for 1972 and 77 and beyond. Meditation garden, of course, was never meant to be a place of rest. It was just a place of contemplation. And obviously, as time went on, it became something entirely different. Although still a place of quiet contemplation, but for a whole different reason than Elvis originally intended it to be. Automobiles, and I think you're getting some better photographs in there than the original one. So that's Black Hawk there. Ferrari Dino. The Sincerely Elvis Museum. The planes. The Heartbreak Hotel. Which I think that one in the original one was a different thing, wasn't it? Because I'm sure the Heartbreak Hotel wouldn't have been there that early. And what's this? Company history, structure and ownership. Annual events at Graceland, including Christmas and Elvis Week. I mean, Elvis Week itself, you know, what other entertainer, what popular entertainer has fans flock from all over the world in the kind of numbers they do to their hometown on the anniversary of their passing each year? The phenomenon of Elvis really is something quite incredible, isn't it? Right, let's look at a more commercially available, widely available book. Now this one has come out in by a couple of different publishers over the years, but it's all the same content. And it should be relatively easy to pick up. This is the Ted Smart publication, but when are we looking? I want to say 96-ish, I think, for this. And this isn't a bad little book at all to pick up and have a guide like this. This edition first published in 1994. It was originally copyrighted to 1993, so probably around the same time that the original guidebook there was published. So, Graceland, The Living Legacy of Elvis Presley. Really nice little book this, and as I say, it shouldn't cost you a fortune to pick up if you haven't got it. So let's have a little look on what's on offer in this one. So, who's this by? I can't quite remember. Graceland Text by Chet Flippo. I think he's one of these authors that's done quite a few books on different artists over the years. So you get a piece on an introduction, talking about the history. And let's get into the meat of it, so to speak. We don't want a load of background, do we? We're here to look at nice pictures of Graceland. Well, that's what I'm here for. Yeah, lots of blurb. Lots of blurb. In fact, I think this is all the bit that Mr. Chet Flippo wrote. Come on. You're getting a fair amount of stuff. But, crikey, when did we get into... through the gates. We're there. Hey. Right. So you're still getting annotation throughout it. It's not just pictures. Obviously, some of the images are quite familiar. They're used in multiple publications. But you get some really nice sort of detail in this one. That, you know, the way they focus in on particular things. Some of the pages are really hard to open on this one, actually. I should have bought one of those things that people have that you wet your finger and end up with mucky marks all over your book. Music room. It's quite a weighty book as well, has to be said. There's a sort of detailed shot of the interior of the piano. The stairs, again you get the shot of the chandelier at the top. So a lot of photography is quite familiar in this one. You know, the bigger shots. Again, that's the stairs with the guitars. TV room. I know a certain person that's done a replica of the wall of the TV room in their Elvis room. What could that be, David? There we go, the pool room. I don't know if anyone, you know, I'm sure people that watch him have encountered it, but there's a Instagram account, Tiny Graceland, and the person is basically reproducing Graceland in miniature form in the most mind-blowingly intricate detail you could possibly imagine. It's you know, it's just fascinating to watch the development. You know, some people and their talents I find quite awe-inspiring, and I really love that Tiny Graceland. If you haven't encountered it, look up Tiny Graceland on Instagram and you'll see what I mean. Just brilliant. Feathered mirror frames. So you are getting some great detailed shots in these. That's the den or the jungle room as it later became. And just look at that photography. Fantastic. So yeah, although you have got the sort of long shots and the standard shots are standard things, the office, Vernon's office, you know, you are getting some great detail as well. Smokehouse. Yeah, look, the photography is really nice actually. So yeah, I think if you don't have this, I'd highly recommend it, because you should be able to pick it up really cheaply. I'm going to show you every single page because I've got a couple more books to show and I don't think we'll have enough time, so let's just go through and give you a flavour. All of gold, and of course, again being 93, not sort of bang up to date, you'll see the stuff as it was exhibited within Graceland itself. Meditation garden, and then we get to the Automobile Museum and some nice shots. Yeah, this is a nice little book, and definitely worth adding to your Elvis library if you don't have it. Really nice record. So that's Graceland, The Living Legacy of Elvis Presley. Now, what we have here is a really interesting little book by Megan Murphy. Now, this one came out, I want to say, in 1997, I believe. Now, what this is, I've kind of shown a couple of the box sets that Elvis Unlimited used to do, where you get a book and various little artifacts and things, and they're all inside Roustabout, inside GI Blues. Inside Graceland was a continuation of that, but as far as I'm aware, for some reason this was a standalone. The book, you got the book, but there was no box that came with it. And I believe sort of about several years later this was reprinted with a different sort of blue cover. I think it might have had more detail in it. But what's great about this one is that this says what you can find on the 112 page, what you can find on the 112 pages of never before seen pictures is basically the first time in print. More than half of the pictures were shot in 1975, Elvis's girlfriend from 72 to 75, Linda Thompson, takes the photographer on a tour through the house. The rest of the pictures were shot after August 1977, with several of them right after Elvis died and around the time of the opening of Graceland. So really what you see in most of the other books so far are contemporary photographs of Graceland now. What you get here are interior shots of a lot of them of the time, 100 unpublished photographs. So this is a little gem of a book. So you'll see a lot of red Graceland, which looks radically different to blue Graceland. So the foyer. Okay. I mean, look, I don't know what it was about Linda Thompson. She loved to be photographed with not much on around Graceland. There seemed to be quite a lot of that. But there we go. The living room. Look how different that looks. Look at that in red. I mean, it looks like a sort of Christmas Graceland almost, doesn't it, compared to the blue that we're used to and we've seen in lots of the other shots. So this one's a little gem. Quite hard to get your hands on these days, but an absolute gem nevertheless. So if anyone knows any different, and it did come in a box like the other Elvis Unlimited inside books, let me know. Look at the dining room, look at it. I really thought they were doing Graceland was going to go red again this year for some reason. It's such a shame. I'm not sure I quite understand the thinking behind it, because this was the colour it was when Elvis passed. This. See what I mean? It's just she just liked to be photographed all over the place in Graceland. I think if I remember rightly, Elvis was none too happy about these photographs. But so there is the den or jungle room, TV in it. TV room. Yeah, they're really nicely put together, this. Really nice contemporary stuff and laid out really nicely. So I think the great thing about this is, you know, you're not getting a duplicate of what's in any of the others at all. Great stuff. And you do get a lot of contemporary memories. Got Sandy Miller. So it's a pretty fascinating text that this book has as well. Great stuff. Linda Thompson again. Cars and motorcycles. So we are going to be seeing here pretty much what you'd expect. Bikes, the Stuck's Black Hawk. Graceland after 1977. Fascinating stuff. Absolutely fascinating. And as it said, a lot of these were taken shortly after Elvis was passed, and some of them around the time in early 80s when it was first opened as open to the public. So yeah, nice little book. Very nice little book. It's interesting to note that among the 82 jumpsuits that were at Graceland after Elvis died, there are 2 of the Eternal Flame suit. Not sure I know which one the Eternal Flame suit is, to be honest with you. Although I do love that tiger. I think that's fantastic. Trophy room after Graceland was open to the public. So yeah, very a very sort of historical kind of book, this, you know, putting the photographs either when Elvis was alive or, you know, shortly afterwards. So it's really nice to see, because you see something really quite different to what we've become used to, you know, those that visit it and those that see it in pictures. And it's interesting, really, because there was when we went in 2002, there was a thing that had just opened called Mobile Graceland, or I guess in the States it would be Mobile Graceland, because I'm stiff upper lip British, I'm going with Mobile Graceland. And it was a big truck that had Elvis exhibits on, and it was, I think it was about August the 10th, around that, I think. It opened up and people could go on it, and through Elvis Week, and then it toured the States. I think it went to 30 odd cities or something like that. So it was kind of the first sort of step to the things we've seen touring the world, you know, the O2 exhibition here in the UK, the Elvis at the Arches, and I know that exhibition's been to Australia, and, you know, they call it direct from Graceland, usually it has the tag. Then there was the Elvis on Tour exhibition at the O2. But this was the first sort of time that I think they took Elvis's stuff and put it somewhere, you know, let the public see it somewhere other than Graceland. And initially it was, I think this was a flyer I either picked up in, I can't remember, it was when we were in Memphis in 2002, and it gave you a little guide to Mobile Graceland. So on there you've got an Elvis gun, J200 guitar, there was the shirt from Jailhouse Rock, there was a comb, there was a jumpsuit, one of the on-tour jumpsuits, what's that, Spectrum jumpsuit with cape, TCB ring was on there, the narcotics badge, black velvet suit that Elvis had when he was at the White House. So there was quite a few things, you know. You went on this big truck and it was kind of like a museum on the truck kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure that was absolutely free, if I remember. If anyone saw Mobile Graceland and went on it, let me know. Was it free? What did you think of it? But what a novel idea, and kind of paving the way for you know, the touring exhibitions that came to follow. So, right, just want to finish with, I kind of do this a lot, I know, build up to what I think is the gold standard, but this is the gold standard for me. So this is a boxcar production, you know, boxcar of the Final Curtain, the Aloha 40th, Elvis on Television. They've produced some of these fantastic mega books in these huge slipcases, and this is no exception. This was from 2012. This does turn up from time to time, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny. It's worth it though. This is something fantastic. It's just, look, absolutely brilliant. So I'm not going to be able to show too much of this because it's really heavy, but a brief history of Graceland we start with. What's that? Colonial courtliness of Georgian style exemplified in stately Graceland. That looks like that's from 1940. So that would have been the commercial appeal Memphis, just after the mansion was built in 39. You see what we're starting with, you know, they've unearthed stuff like that. Ruth Moore with a harp and Graceland's drawing room, 1940. Stunning stuff. Stunning stuff. Like original articles at the time. Singer is interested in purchasing Graceland. Wherever Elvis goes, girls flock. Graceland Farm auction sale. Thursday, May the 7th, 1942, does that say? Elvis examining the famous gates. I think that might be the day after they were installed. So I think they went in April 22nd. A couple of days later, Elvis was photographed with deeds. Hopefully they're contracts. What's that? A ground land survey. Graceland blueprints. You know, wow. Just, yeah, there's the photographs taken a couple of days after the gates were installed. Does it say a date? April the 22nd. Elvis poses. I don't think that's true. I don't think he was photographed on the day they were put in. I could be wrong. It was a couple of days later, I believe. Bits on the gates, how the photographs were used for the Live on Stage in Memphis album. The pool. Just, obviously we get some red Graceland shots in here. But, you know, it's the scale of this book. You know, I've said before, these giant coffee table books, they do such justice to the photography. Then, of course, you know, there's Elvis in a red. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because he's got red drapes there, but that's clearly, was that 65? 64, 65? But that's clearly pre-Linda Thompson decorating loads of the other areas red. So there was a history of Graceland having red in it as well. But yeah, this... Oh, more Linda Thompson. Oh dear. Is that Delta? No. That's Pauline Nicholson, sorry. That's what happens when you're looking at something upside down with light shining on it. You can't see for looking. The den. Again, you know, you will see photographs that are familiar, but you'll see a lot that aren't, and you'll see it in great clarity. And you'll see sort of detail of all sorts of things in this book. This is glorious. And the text is really, really good. Really informative. If ever anything summed Vernon up, it's that note that he had on his office, isn't it? Fantastic. Weighs an absolute ton, as all the best books seem to. But yeah, if you see this come up and it's not silly money, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I mean, some of the photographs in here, even that, like seeing the Dino like that in such great clarity. And that's the dashboard of one of the Blackhawks. That would be 76, 75. This is Christmas 75. Part 2, Graceland through the years. So we start in the 1950s. You see lots of fantastic photographs. The printing quality in this is utterly superb. Really, really sort of top quality production, this. I like what this does as well, showing Elvis at Graceland in quite a lot of different situations and context. Beautiful book. Beautiful book. And then we get 60s. See the press conference when he comes home from the army. I think that's when RCA presented him with that big phonogram outside the front door, if I remember rightly. It's just Brilliant, just brilliant. You know, it kind of puts together what a lot of the other books do and then does something else. So you get all that detail on the mansion, all the photographs, but then you get all these fantastic pictures of Elvis, you know, adding context to what you've seen of the detail and information about the mansion. So yeah, I give this a hearty recommendation. It's really good. As I say, it's not cheap, but you know, it's one of those to me. It's right up there amongst the best. So there we go. Elvis and the King's Castle, if you like. So yeah, I think that's the gold standard. Elvis Presley's Graceland through the years 1957 to 1977. And I'd recommend any that we've seen actually. The Megan Murphy book's really good, and the sort of Graceland Living Legacy book. You know, and they're all at different budgets, all at different accessibility levels, but all give an interesting insight into what was Elvis's sanctuary. So, you know, let me know in the comments, you know, let me know your experience. Have you not made it to Graceland and still want to? If you have been to Graceland, what are your recollections? What were your standout things? Are you intending to go back again? I'd love to hear from anyone that was there at the time, that stood at the gates, maybe anyone that actually saw Elvis at the gates. What are your thoughts on what it's turned into now and the complex opposite? You know, I just let me know about your thoughts on Graceland, because I'd love to read them. So yeah, we're sliding ever closer towards August the 16th. So I think I'll try and do something next week that's a little more personal to Elvis himself. But thanks for watching. I hope that was enjoyable in some way, shape or form. I appreciate you watching as always. I hope you are able to join me next week. But whatever you do in the week, have a great one. Take care. Ta-da.
We'll meet you again. May God bless you. Adios.